Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, representatives of the media, I will express myself both as head of our local council and as the head of the health services. Our Valais Council of State wishes to express once again towards the families of the victims and the injured people and the loved ones who are waiting for news. And we are aware of the difficult times you have spent and the unbearable weight you are undergoing. From the start of this incident, our teams have been doing their very utmost to save lives, to support families and those who have been left behind, and of course, to identify as quickly as possible the victims of this incident. One of the key things we should emphasize is the cooperation that has been put in place in caring for the injured people. Valais Hospital initially cared for about half of the 119 patients initially, but then other cantons have provided additional large-scale support. Our emergency services will tell you more of the details. The University Hospital of Lausanne has cared for more than 20 patients, and we are very grateful for this collaboration. This solidarity and this cooperation has not stopped at our borders. We've received offers of support from many foreign countries, in particular from our neighbouring countries. Our roles as state councillors is to facilitate these international contacts. We once again thank the Swiss Confederation. The President was with us yesterday, and we thank all of the federal authorities that are supporting us in this tragic situation. Mr. Parmelin has given the order not only to fly flags at half-mast on all the Swiss buildings, but on all Swiss embassies around the world. This tragedy for Valais is also a tragedy for Switzerland and for the whole of Europe. We've had discussions with the French Minister of Health, who has given me assurances of the support of her country for supporting injured people. Transfers of injured people have already taken place towards French hospitals. She has already made available specialist doctors in order to organize these transfers and to support patients at Valais Hospital, and this offer has been accepted. The Italian Minister of Foreign Affairs came today to Crans-Montana with my colleague, Mr. Ganzer. We walked with him in order to meet families from the Italian community who have been affected by this tragedy. Here, again, there has been an offer of care for patients, and this has been accepted, and some patients have already been transferred to the north of Italy. There has been real solidarity in the face of this tragedy, and it's essential. The emergency services, Mr. Frederic Michel Roten will tell you more about this, but around 50 patients have been transferred or will be transferred to European countries to specialist burns treatment centres. The whole of humanity has taken on a role from our teams that have worked in an unprecedented manner to care for the victims. The tragedy is appalling. 40 people are known to have lost their lives. These figures are deeply troubling. And in the name of the Valais government, I want to express my deepest condolences for those affected by this tragedy. A number of the people injured are still in a critical condition and life-threatening condition today. They are being cared for by exceptional medical teams in Sion, in other hospitals around the country, and in hospitals in our neighbouring countries. Following on from this press conference, I'm going to go to the hospital to meet support the patients and to meet the medical professionals. We can be very proud of Valais Hospital, of everyone involved, from the management down to the frontline carers, for their exceptional work, which is ongoing today. The staff working in our hospitals are working in a remarkable manner. Some of them have given up their days of holiday in order to come into hospital to support the teams who were already working there. One of the people working there talked about the stillness and quiet within which people are working there. To conclude, I want to tell you that a ceremony will be held at Camp Montana on Friday, the 9th of January 2026. We've just informed the Federal Council of this. This ceremony will be an opportunity for local people to come together to share a moment of grief and mourning with the rest of our nation. A book of condolences will be posted online from tomorrow on the Swiss Federation website to enable anyone who wishes to send a message of support, of solidarity to those who have been affected. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday morning, the fate of approximately 150 people turned to horror on a party night in Camp Montana. Since then, Valais Canton Police Service has been working without any respite to provide support to the victims and the families of those affected by this unprecedented tragedy. The most important task is to work out for these families whether their loved ones are amongst those who lost their lives or have been injured by this tragic fire. This is the information that I can communicate to you today. This information has all been communicated to the affected families. With respect to the 119 people who were injured, 113 people have been able to be formally identified. For 6 other people, formal definitive identification is still ongoing. Of these people formally identified, 71 are of Swiss nationality. We also are aware of 14 French nationals, 11 Italian nationals, 4 Serbians, 1 Bosnian national, 1 Belgian person, 1 person from Luxembourg, 1 Polish national, and 1 Portuguese national. For 14 victims, their nationality is as yet unknown. These figures may yet change as the formal identification process follows its course. With respect to the people who have lost their lives, as the president of our government said, we are aware of 40 people who have lost their lives. Formal identification is ongoing and it is our priority. We want to identify the people who've lost their lives as quickly as possible. We have the necessary means and resources to do so. We are relying on the support of specialists from various cantonal police services across Switzerland, and I thank them for that. The formal standardized identification protocols take time. Cooperation is underway with several countries, including France, Belgium, Poland, Portugal, but also Congo, Philippines, Serbia, Turkey, and Romania. These protocols are necessary in order to enable formal and definitive identification as quickly as possible. The Cantonal Police Service of Valais hereby wishes to express its undying support to the families who have been affected by this awful tragedy. Alongside our roles of identification, investigation, and protection, I have ordered that each one of these families should receive personal support day and night until the bodies of their loved ones can be formally identified. We are determined to provide the best possible support during this period of uncertainty and suffering. Finally, I wish to express my deepest thanks to all the police services and our partners who have been working alongside us in this operation. Thanks to their tireless mobilization, we've been able to work with the victims, working to identify them, and we will continue to do this work in the days to come with utmost commitment. With respect to the initial results of the investigations by the Valais Canton investigatory services, I'm going to hand the floor to Ms. Beatrice Pilloud, Attorney General of the Valais Canton. Thank you. Thank you, Commander. With respect to the investigation, I wish to ensure you that the Public Prosecution Service is sparing no effort in order to determine the circumstances of this tragic event. Let me remind you that an investigation has been opened today in order to determine, first of all, the circumstances of the fire. All possible pistes are being explored. No possible explanation is being left to one side. Some of the theories appear to be confirmed today. It would appear that the fire started from sparkler candles, otherwise known as flares, which were placed on top of champagne bottles. These flares were taken too close to the ceiling. This led to what is referred to a flashover incident where the fire spread very rapidly. In order to determine these initial results, videos have been obtained and analysed. Several people have been interviewed and observations have been made on the premises. During the interviews, the two French managers of the bar have been spoken to and various people who escaped the tragedy. These interviews enabled us to draw up a list of people who were present at the party. These lists are being used to help the identification efforts. These interviews help us to understand the internal configuration of the premises, the work that had been done, and the capacity of the premises to welcome guests. The investigations will focus on the renovation work that had been carried out in the bar, the materials used, the licensing arrangements, and the safety and security arrangements, fire extinguishers, emergency exits, and other firefighting equipment. We will also focus on the number of people who were present at the party, the number of people that the bar is authorized to host, the exit routes and the access routes into the premises. The Forensic Institute of Zurich has received an initial mandate, and according to the first results and following on from further measurements that will be taken, we will be able to investigate whether any individuals bear criminal liability for this incident. If this is the case, and if these people are alive, investigations will be opened for fire by negligence, homicide by negligence, and injuries by negligence. With respect to identification efforts, a lot of people are working on this. More than 30 people are currently working hard to enable the families to obtain information as to whether the member of their family, their child, has lost their life or become a victim of this incident. There is a very clear method which will be explained by Lieutenant Colonel Lengen. Before I finish speaking, I would like to thank everyone for all of the support provided. I thank the police forces and the government services. I want to thank all of the colleagues who are prosecutors across Switzerland who have been working with me and have declared themselves ready to provide their support. As you will have understood, the priority today is still to identify the victims in order to enable the families to start their mourning. Thank you for listening. I'm going to hand the floor now to Lieutenant Colonel Lengen. Thank you, Madam Attorney General. I want to repeat once again, even though it's already been said, how important it is to the Cantonal Police Service to identify all of the people who have lost their lives. That is our number one priority. In order to do this, we are working with all of the Cantonal Police Service, with the federal police services, and with various Swiss and international partners. In this context, we have called on a structure called the DVI, a Swiss structure, a Swiss organization whose role is to identify disaster victims. It has scientific police officers, investigators, coroners, and dentists. This organization was used in 2004 when the tsunami in Southeast Asia caused Swiss people to lose their lives. This organization follows international Interpol standards in order to identify victims. There is no space for any mistakes in this field. So we want to make sure that we give families the correct bodies. The Cantonal Police Service has been working with this organisation, as the Attorney General said, with 30 people who have gone to the premises. They have picked up the bodies and taken them to a specific location under a specific protocol. They are now examining the bodies in order to carry out the post-mortem. The post-mortem will find all of the identification items on the body, fingerprints, other items and objects that might have been on the person. This data will be brought together with post-mortem information about the clothes that the people were wearing, as well as DNA samples that have been taken from family members in order to match with the bodies of those who've lost their lives. So once we have ante-mortem and post-mortem information, a file is prepared and brought before an information commission with people from the government authorities, from the coroner's offices and the investigators. This commission then validates the match, the correlation between the ante-mortem and the post-mortem information. Once the match has been established, the dossier is approved by the commission. The body can then be released and the coroner can provide a death certificate. We can then give information to the family and continue with operations. We have got support from the Swiss registrar's offices to ensure that the families don't have to do the different formalities on their own. They will be supported by police officers and officials from the registrar's office. And I thank the registrar's offices for their support. That's the procedure that has been set in place. It is our number one priority, but as you will have understood, it is very complex. It requires careful, meticulous work. We cannot allow any mistakes in this field, even if the wait is extremely difficult for the families, and we do know that, and that is why all of our staff are working day and night in order to provide answers to the families as quickly as possible. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. With respect to security and safety, the Valais Canton is working, and we are not working alone. We've benefited from solidarity from across Switzerland and abroad. We've had to work quickly to secure the premises and save lives. We are now in a consolidation phase with regard to safety and security. The work has not stopped there. The security work focuses on policing now with three key priorities: supporting families, both Swiss and foreign families. Families came together in Crans-Montana yesterday. Police are there to support them, protect them, and provide ongoing care and support to them. This is really important because when we tell the families that the bodies of their loved ones have been identified, they will continue to receive police support, which won't stop when they receive this news, but they will continue to receive ongoing psychological support and police support. The second priority is identifying the victims, and I'm not going to repeat what's been said. Our canton is receiving significant outside support in order to try to bring this terrible wait to an end for the families. The third priority is to determine the circumstances of the incident. Investigations are ongoing. The videos that have been circulating in the media show a certain reality, but they need to be subject to legal procedures in order to establish the reality of what took place. Those are the priorities. Exceptional measures are taken in order to achieve these priorities. It is an unprecedented effort. We have received support from the Federal Policing Office. We have 4 police officers from the Federal Judicial Police here with us in Valais. We've received support from the Zurich Forensic Institute, which has also come here to work and analyze the incident to try to determine how the fire started. We have 6 people from the Zurich Institute here in Valais. We've got 40 uniformed Valais police officers who are present on site in order to support people, secure the premises and guide people around that. We have 40 police inspectors who are carrying out investigations, interviews, and there are another 30 specialists in identification, doctors, coroners, dentists, and so on. So dozens and dozens of people are mobilized, which show these are priorities, and we are not holding back in any efforts. No efforts are spared. On an institutional level, the Valais Canton is working closely with the Federal Department for Foreign Affairs with respect to diplomatic and international coordination. Medical transfers are a priority in order to ensure the best possible care for the people who've been injured. At Sion Airport, there's been a lot of air traffic today because medical evacuation flights have been organised towards neighbouring countries, and there are other countries who are continuing to offer their help and support. This obviously requires different procedures, and in this regard, we have received support from the Federal Department of Foreign Affairs. We had the Italian Foreign Affairs Minister visiting us. We were able to reassure him and show everything that has been done, and there will undoubtedly be other state visits organised in the days to come. This cooperation requires human contact in order to make sure that collaborations work properly. That's what I needed to say to you about security. A final point is about the support and care for the carers and first responders. We're not going to forget the people who who were the first to arrive on the premises. Let's not forget as well the neighbours and people from the neighbourhood who came and got involved. Let's not forget the healthcare professionals and those who are continuing to work in Swiss and European hospitals. And we are very grateful to each and every one of them. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, representatives of the media. The event that we experienced yesterday is a tragedy for all the victims and their loved ones. I want to send a message of support and strength for the period there is to come. I have a thought for the various emergency services that intervened. It was a very complex and difficult operation, not just on a technical point of view, but on an emotional point of view. And I want to thank all of our partners, as well as all of the workers of our emergency services, the call centres that is can be called on the emergency number 144. I want to thank all the emergency nurses who have been involved. I want to give you some details of yesterday's emergency intervention. The alarm was raised at the same time as for the police and the fire service. A major effort was immediately mobilized within our canton. We have had to activate the major health event protocol. We mobilized various emergency and disaster response vehicles. The operation is not a Valais only procedure, but it complies with national and international standards for situations where the number of victims are greater than the usual situation. We organized the intervention on the affected premises, and we then had a pre-triage intervention where we triage patients according to the seriousness of their injuries before directing them to a forward medical outpost. We then conducted medical triage and the initial therapeutic care before transporting patients to hospital. The treatments were focused on stabilizing vital functions. We had to intubate a number of patients and induce an artificial coma. We then directed them to hospitals depending on the capacities and capabilities of the hospitals. It's important to emphasize the great solidarity of the destination hospitals. They were able to greatly increase their capacity in a very short period of time. Information was sent by the call center to the Eversan organization to allocate each patient to a means of transport and a destination hospital. Major means were mobilized, 40 ambulance, 20 of which came from the neighboring Valais Canton. We thank them for their support. 13 helicopters, including 6 from the canton, from Zermatt and Gracieux, 5 from other cantons, 1 French helicopter and 1 Italian helicopter. We thank all those involved. 2 command vehicles, 2 heavy vehicles and 1 truck made available by the neighboring Valais Canton. 150 emergency health workers worked last night. Ambulance drivers and paramedics, doctors, members of our emergency services or organization, emergency psychologists and other first responders. In addition, a major pool of emergency psychologists was mobilized. And this team continues to work in order to provide psychotherapeutic care to people who have been involved, patients, loved ones, family members, but also people who have been involved in the emergency response to the situation. We have a team of between 10 and 20 psychotherapists in order to provide ongoing support. That was yesterday. But let me tell you how things are going to move forward. Burns care is highly specialized, is complex, and can take weeks or even months. We will continue to transfer patients to the appropriate care settings. There are two reasons for this. Firstly, given the high number of injured people and the limits on the specialized places, the patients were sent to different Swiss hospitals with intensive care beds, but these are not hospitals that are necessarily burns specialist hospitals. The aim was to stabilize the vital functions in the initial time. There were also a number of people who turned up of their own accord to the hospitals. We know this happens, and we had, for example, agreed to take patients with agreed transport means to the hospital of Sion. At the same time, around 40 people turned up under their own steam at Sion Hospital, some with very serious injuries. They needed to be transported and transferred. We needed to transfer them to other hospitals. This was coordinated with different bodies, including the emergency response coordination centres. Initial coordination efforts took place yesterday morning in order to determine the needs. Other specialist medical teams, the burn assessment teams from France and Italy, are also present supporting the Swiss hospitals and have been coordinating transfers to French and Italian hospitals. This response has been coordinated on European level using international protocols for dealing with burns victims. 50 transfers are planned by Sunday, the 4th of December, to neighbouring countries, Germany, France, Italy and Belgium. Other countries have also offered their capabilities. Air evacuation capabilities have been offered by France, Germany, Luxembourg, Italy and Romania. And that is all I have to say. Let me now give you some information about the situation in the hospital of Valais. As an introduction, I would like to say that all hospital staff share the pain of suffering that the families are undergoing, those families that have been bereaved, but also the families of those who have been injured and who are walking through a particularly difficult time. Our hospital has been deeply affected by this. At the same time, I want to say that Valais Hospital has worked. It has worked properly and well throughout this period. I'm going to tell us about our two hospital centres. We have two in the Lower Valley and the Upper Valley, and they operated differently. Firstly, at the Sion site. The Sion site is a specialist trauma centre specialising in taking care of seriously injured victims. It was an appropriate location to bring patients following a disaster, and this worked as planned. This tragedy took place during a holiday period, and for us this is a time of high levels of activity. We have reinforced our staffing levels for the holiday period. in order to cover the needs of the local population. And during the night of this incident, the accident and emergency department was already busy. We had a flow of injured people from the Caen tragedy, but we also had ordinary injuries. I don't want to downplay what they're going through, but the normal injuries that we treat every day. The team at Sion Hospital responded as soon as the initial calls were received, and we prepared to receive the injured victims. I will give you some figures in a few moments. The situation has changed very rapidly, as our colleagues have stated. We've moved into a phase of stabilization. But it's important to know that this is a difficult phase. The families are starting to have initial contact with their injured loved ones. A hospital is a place of confidentiality, and it's a place where there needs to be peace and tranquility for the patients and their families. The media pressure can be a very difficult thing for families and loved ones. That's why we are setting some boundaries, and I'm speaking to you as members of the media. We are going to set boundaries in order to protect the families, which by creating a calm and quiet therapeutic environment, which is vital for our patients and their families. Having said that, with respect to the Sion Hospital Centre, in relation with the Caen tragedy, 55 casualties came to our hospital during the night of the incident. Out of these 55, 13 people were able to return home, which is good news. We have 11 who are still in our hospital and 28 that have been transferred to other Swiss or international hospitals. Of these 11 people, 4 are still in intensive care and are in a critical, life-threatening condition. We have 3 that are in the surgery department and 4 that are in the surgery department in Sierre, because the Sierre hospital is also providing care. With respect to the Upper Valais hospital, we received patients very quickly from the forward medical outpost set up by the emergency services, and we admitted 7 patients, 2 of whom are still in Sierre in intensive care. That is the current situation. A large amount of work has been carried out since yesterday in order to triage the patients, assess the situations, to transfer patients that needed transfer. And another important thing with regard to transfer is for the patients to be able to be as near as possible to the places where they live, particularly for the victims that come from other countries. It's already been said that the type of injuries and lesions that they have undergone are injuries that will require longer-term treatment. It is therefore necessary for these people to stay as close as possible to where they live, because relational support, the fact of having friends and family around them in an environment that is close to where they live, all of that is really vital for their recovery. That's the situation with regard to the hospital in Valais. I want to talk about our teams. Our teams were prepared to manage high levels of activity during the holiday period, but obviously not for this type of an event. Our emergency plan was able to be implemented very quickly, in particular thanks to high levels of solidarity. Very quickly, within 2 hours of the process being initiated, many colleagues came back spontaneously to their workplace and came in order to help the teams deal with the high levels of patients to be treated. It was a time of great solidarity, but of course also of great concern and worry because some of our staff were wondering whether they had family members who had been in Caen at the time. It was a New Year's Eve party, so everyone was worried when they saw the patients arrive, and they were also wondering whether they had loved ones who might have been caught up in the incident. So there was a lot of emotions. Emotions were running high, but nonetheless, our teams worked extremely professionally to deal with the situation. The hospital will continue to do its work. The ski season is continuing, so we will continue to work to treat injuries, and we have teams working on site, in particular a psychiatry team to provide support to families and also to our staff teams. And this process of support will continue both for the families of patients but also for the professionals, because there will be times where they struggle to cope with the emotions. From a professional perspective, I think we can say that we faced this situation successfully. We're continuing to do that. Our planning and our procedures worked, and we hoped that we will have been as useful as possible for the families and the victims of this terrible incident. Ladies and gentlemen, before we bring this press conference to an end, I would like to draw attention to a really important point. Various figures have been quoted to you today. None of these figures are definitive. Figures may be different to other figures that you might have heard. This is due to the fact that the situation is evolving and that the number of injured people has been evolving. Lieutenant Colonel Lengen and Professor Bonvin said to us that some people turned up under their own steam at the accident and emergency department, and that has led to an increase in the numbers of injured people that we are aware of. There are some people who may have been identified, but not formally and definitively. So the figures that we have communicated to you today are all for those people who have been definitively and formally identified. All of this may change in the days to come, and I want to ask you to take this reality into account. So these figures may well still change in the days and weeks to come. I want to thank all of the people either side of me who have spoken to you today. I want to thank you all for coming. Thank you to all the people who've been involved in emergency response, in the initial investigations, in helping the families and saving lives. This support has been truly essential. I would also like to highlight the very great solidarity that has been in evidence in Valais, across Switzerland, but also the solidarity that we have seen on an international level. We are very grateful. Thank you. This brings an end to the first part of the press conference. You now have the opportunity to ask questions to the speakers. Microphones are available on either side of the hall. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'm from Associated Press. I want to first of all thank your teams. It's difficult to imagine how difficult it must be to face such an unprecedented scale of drama. There are lots of questions that remain, and I understand that you're not able to provide answers to everything. We've all seen pictures of these sparkler candles, and we've all been struck by the fact that it seemed like there was a kind of soundproofing foam on the ceiling, and that may have been a reason why the fire spread quickly. Can you speak about that aspect? In addition, it could be imagined that the basement area of the bar has been inspected in the past. Were safety inspections carried out? Were the premises found to be compliant? And do you have any information about any challenges that people faced in trying to get out of the premises? Was there only one emergency exit? Was it just this staircase on this door, which appears to perhaps have been too small for the purpose? Thank you very much, sir. There are going to be two answers. With respect to the foam, the investigations will focus on this foam that was installed in the bar, and the investigation will seek to determine whether this foam was safety compliant and whether it is the cause of the fire or not. Currently, given the fact that we are still only a few hours from the incident, I cannot tell you with any degree of certainty that a foam was there that was compliant or not compliant, that it was installed under the proper authorization or not. I think it's really important for the families to avoid speculation. And I do want to address myself to each one of you in the media. Please do not speculate. I personally commit to give you full access to the conclusion of the investigations as soon as these conclusions are available. I'm going to head over to State Councillor Stephane Ganzer to speak about inspections. Thank you. In Valais, there is a law on fire protection and protection against natural disasters. Our municipality is responsible for periodical investigations. There are different frequencies for housing and public establishments. For public establishments such as the bars, there are inspections which should take place every year. That is the recommendation. So the municipality of Crans-Montana is responsible for inspecting such buildings. What can happen if defects are found is that a report is drawn up and the landlords receive a deadline in order to make the appropriate adaptations, and if necessary, the report is sent to the canton. If the landlord doesn't carry out the work or correct the defects, in such situations, the canton will support the municipality in the necessary procedures, which might include closing down the bar. In this case, our canton fire department never received any report about the fire safety of this building. I can't tell you about the inspections because that's the municipality's responsibility. The police investigation will look into the frequency of the inspections, but we received no report on defects for this bar and no request to support the municipality of Crans-Montana. We don't have the information about the inspections. You asked a question about emergency exits, about materials, about the width of the door. This building did have emergency exits, not only one, but it does appear that most people did, at the time of the incident, try to leave by the main entrance and exit. There were emergency exits, but in a situation with a widespread fire, a flashover type fire, whereby the people are unable to see what is going on and to move around, and there was a general panic. Most people didn't necessarily find their way to the emergency exits. Good morning. Good afternoon. Capucine from BFM TV. I've got several questions for the Attorney General. You said that the two landlords have been interviewed. Could you tell us under what conditions, what status they were interviewed under? Do you have the exact number of people who were present at the bar at night? You've talked to us about the sparkler candles. Is this the leading line of investigation for the moment? And a final question for Hospital Director Bonvin. We've talked about to families about a lack of information. What can you tell us in that regard? I can first of all talk to you about the landlords who have been interviewed as people called to give information. That's the status. With respect to the number of people present in the bar, I don't have that information, and I'll be really honest with you. I don't know whether we will have an exact number at the end of the investigation. It's a bar. People turn up, people leave again, and at the time of the fire, it probably is not possible to know exactly how many people were in the bar. With respect to the sparkler candles, that is the main line of inquiry, and it seems to be confirmed. I'll hand the floor to Mr. Bonvin to answer your question, but I do want to speak about this issue of information. Information and communication has been communicated through the 4 people who have been present at all 3 press conferences. Communication needs to take place in a controlled, safe, and appropriate manner in accordance with respect for the families. That's why we are not talking about theories and speculations. When we say something, when we're giving figures of the number of people who've been injured, we are communicating established facts with you. In order to give some further information, I want to agree with what has just been said. In our hospital, we have provided support for all the families of people who have loved ones in hospitals. We've taken them to a special dedicated location, and as soon as we've had any information about their loved ones who were in the hospital, only those ones, we have communicated that information. But it is very clear that we couldn't provide information to concerned family who were trying to find out whether people were dead or not, whether they were receiving care elsewhere. If we didn't have the patients in our hospital, we couldn't give that information. But within the hospital, information was provided in an ongoing way to families with regard to the care for people who we had identified. At the start, there were some patients that we had been unable to identify, and we provided ongoing information to the families and providing continuing support for families today. What I can understand is that in the very difficult situation following this disaster, it's difficult to get precise and accurate information. The primary role for the emergency services and the hospital services was to save lives. So it did take time. It did take time to get the information together, even the clinical information. But we did not, in any case, neglect the need to provide information to families. I think it's important to say that. From Le Temps newspaper. 3 questions. You talked about identification of the injured people, but not necessarily identification of people who have died. Out of the 40 people who've died, how many have been identified? Second question, with respect to the sparkler candles, are authorizations or licenses required to use them? Were they allowed to use them in an enclosed space like the bar? Third question, there are pictures that suggest that the emergency exit was blocked in the basement. Do you have any information in this regard? Thank you, sir. With respect to identification, I wasn't necessarily clear enough, it would seem. I think that they're explicit enough, so I will repeat what I said. With respect to the people who have lost their lives, I said that there are 40 victims and we are continuing identification operations. And I said that this is the absolute number one priority for the cantonal police services. We are carrying on the formal definitive identification process according to the process described by the protocol described by my colleague, the Lieutenant Colonel. I can talk to you about the sparkler candles or the flares that you described. These are birthday cake candles that you can buy in any shop. Any of us can buy them. With respect to the authorization to use them in a closed space or an enclosed environment, the investigations are underway and we will provide answers in due course. Alessandro Zulian from Blick. I've tried to get in contact with Nicolas Ferraud and haven't been able to get in contact with him or the police service. I've got a question about fire protection. Is it possible that the premises was not in compliance with safety procedures and were inspections carried out? Why is the president of the municipality not here today? And are there questions about fire inspection procedures? What inspections were carried out? What was done? What wasn't done? Thank you very much. Nicolas Ferraud was not invited today. He was present yesterday, and he had the opportunity to give answers to these questions. We can't necessarily answer the questions with him with regard to fire protection. As has previously been said, investigations are underway, and it's a little bit too early right now in order to give you a clear and certain answer to your questions. Thank you. I'm from 20 minutes. I'm also going to ask a question in German on behalf of our colleagues in Zurich. Mr. Ganzer said that the responsibility for inspections lay with the municipality. Do we know when the most recent inspections were carried out? The second part of the question was inaudible. Thank you for the question. The responsibility did lie with the municipality, but I cannot at this present time tell you when the most recent inspection took place. I cannot yet tell you either whether acoustic foam requires a specific authorization or not. That will be a subject for the investigation. Thank you for your understanding. Additional question. Were there any issues that prevented the emergency services intervention? Think about the premises. It's the 1st of January in Grand Montana. I've not heard anything that prevented the emergency services intervening. What was the other word you used? The question is inaudible. Films were filmed from outside. We've watched various videos that have been published in the media. These phone footage was filmed by people standing around who wanted to help, but we haven't yet got very far in our analysis of it. I've got a question for the Attorney General. In the context of the investigation, has an order been given to the French couple, the landlords, to not leave Swiss territory if they were potentially criminally liable? How can you prevent them leaving for France, where France will not extradite their citizens? I'm going to talk to you in general terms. I'm not going to talk about the couple. The people who have been interviewed as people called to give information, they are not interviewed under caution. If there is a flight risk, it is possible for us to take the necessary measures. But for the moment, no criminal liability has been determined. Good afternoon from Agence France Presse. Out of the 40 people who have lost their lives, do you know whether they all died at the bar, or did some of them lose their life subsequently after the fire? Thank you. I cannot answer your question. I don't have all the necessary information. The only thing that I can confirm is that we have 40 fatalities today, most of whom were found in the bar. Thank you. I've got questions about the figures. Sometimes it seems a little bit pedantic, but we want to do our work properly. You talked about 119 casualties, and you said 6 have not been formally identified. You also said that amongst those nationalities, there are 14 people whose nationalities were unknown. Of these 14, are there people whose identity you know, but you don't know what country they come from? Is that right? Yes, it's more or less that. Let me give you a more precise answer. When I talked about identification, we can give them a first name and a last name, but further formal identification work is carrying on with the federal authorities and with the authorities in the foreign countries that we're working with. There is a gap in the figures I gave you. There's a difference, because it's really important to be very clear about the definitions that we give. As the Attorney General said, and in accordance with what I said earlier, these figures will change and evolve over the days to come, and we will give you regular updates on these figures so that you can then carry out your work and give information to the population. I think Mr. Ganzer on RTS, somebody here said that there were between 80 to 100 injured people who were in an absolute emergency people. When you talked about the 119 patients, you didn't give any figures. Can you give any information about the condition of these 119 patients? I can give you an initial response. This is something that we mentioned yesterday in a press conference. Yesterday we said that 80 people were transferred via the Swiss emergency services. Of these 80 people who had been cared for on the site, the majority of them were in a serious or critical condition. Perhaps the head of the emergency services can give us some more details. He might have a more precise overview than the rest of us. Unfortunately, I don't have that information. I can simply repeat what was said yesterday. The term seriously injured is not a very specific term. It's difficult to say this person is seriously injured and this one is not seriously injured. But out of the people that we treated, I would say the majority of them were seriously injured. Thank you allowing me the opportunity to speak in German. I wanted to ask a quick question about the safety rules for the bar. At the moment, the most important thing is the investigation. We might need to take further measures, but the important thing right now is to determine the responsibilities. We don't want to put in place any limitations on what private individuals can do or buy. If there are no further questions, I want to thank all of the Valais government government authorities. I want to thank you all for coming to this third press conference. Thank you very much.